Hello and welcome to this Project in a Box video tour. This tour is a rerun of the presentation I gave at Project Challenge in March 2013, titled Sometimes the Best Things in Life Are Free. I'm Malcolm West from Project in a Box. So this tour is about our planner tool. It's a tool that we've been developing over the last something like 2 years now, and it came from a very simple premise. We've been providing templates for plans in our main application to help people collect task and plan information for their reporting, and they can load their plans in and take the data, and it'll produce resource profiles and Gantt charts and all that sort of thing. And most people have either traditionally provided their data from Microsoft Project straight as an MPP file, or they've provided it using the Excel template that we gave away for ages to help people assemble sort of simple tasks. They could put in their task details, it would draw some sort of Gantt chart arrangement, and that data was then structured for loading in. And both modes are very popular. Microsoft Project people people like a lot, and a lot of people use it. It can be quite expensive to buy, and therefore often there aren't enough licenses to go around for people sharing plans. And actually, you often need a bit of training to make the most of it, to get to use it as well as you need to sometimes. So the Excel option was always very popular. In fact, people used it really on quite big projects. We were quite surprised, but it doesn't really allow you to be particularly flexible in how you present the information and how you collect it and how tasks proceed after other tasks and all that sort of thing. So we wanted to make all that a bit better, and that's where Planner came in. And so Planner, as it now is, allows you to be really quite sophisticated with the plans you can produce. You can have any combination of tasks. They can be grouped together into summaries. You can drive the start and end dates of those via a number of different mechanisms. They can follow on after other tasks. You can have multiple predecessors. They can start and finish on dates, all those sort of things. And you can store really quite a lot of task-related information associated with them. The resources, percentage complete, tags, notes, descriptions, a whole range of different information, costs, in fact, as well. And we tried to put the tool together a bit differently from some of the other planning packages. Really, the starting idea is to make it easy for people to use, and also to make it easy for people that have already got some experience of using a planning tool to move on to it as well. But we've taken it beyond just plans, although it is called Planner, and added a wider range of information collection into it. So as I say, it can also do costs as well, in terms of budgeting of tasks and recording of actuals, information against those. And it can also collect and manage risks and responses, and issues and responses for those as well. So you can, in one file, have all the core information that you need for managing the controls of a small project, plans, risks and issues. And we've made Planner quite an open-ended tool. It's of course primarily, well, it is free, and so you can give it to whoever you want to. So you can share your Planner file. You can give people a link so they can register and download the Planner tool itself. So anybody you want to can open and work on your plans, or your risk registers, or your issue registers, etc. But also Planner can load data in from other tools. It has the ability to load plans, risks and issues, content from spreadsheet structured format, and also from other applications including Microsoft Project. Same for risks and issues, you can load it from a spreadsheet format, but interestingly, and a lot of applications don't do this, we also allow you to share the data back out as well. So you can load it back out into spreadsheets. You can load the plan data back out into a format that can be loaded into Microsoft Project. So that makes it very flexible and gives you a lot of freedom about how you choose to use it. We'd be delighted if you want to use it, on all of your plans forever, but you don't have to do that. And a lot of people start their plans in Planner because it's very easy to do, and as they begin to flesh it out and it becomes more complicated, they perhaps choose to move that into Microsoft Project, where a professional planner can then take hold of it and expand it as required. So you have the freedom to decide how you choose to implement that. And of course, managing your data, getting your data in a good format means that you can then go on and use that in interesting ways, and perhaps merge that with data from Excel and Microsoft Project in the main application, bringing together data from the tools that are appropriate for different types of projects. So we'll have a look at that a bit more at the end of the session. But what I want to do now is load up Planner and a Planner file, and let's get going with having a look at it. So what we've got here is on my desktop I have a Planner file. It's a .spn file, actually, that's what the file extension is. And so when we click on that associated application, it opens straight away in Planner. And what we can see here is fairly traditional sort of Gantt chart arrangement. We've obviously opened in the Gantt chart plan tasks part of the system, and we can see here there are 3 tabs: one for plans, one for risks, and one for issues. Now you can set this up so that it doesn't show all 3, it can just show one of them. So you can run it as a standalone issue register, standalone risk register, or a standalone plan. But in this case, small project example, I've got all 3 running out of the same file. So let's focus on our plan area for the moment. It's slightly different layout to some other planning applications. One of the things people often say is, well, we want to be able to see our data, and that means that the space we've got left to see our Gantt chart over to the right hand side is minuscule. So we've arranged it in a slightly different way. You always see the task name, you can choose one of the column that you display next to that, and then the rest of the data is shown above and below arrangements here. So we can see our plan, and as we click onto the Gantt chart and select the task, we'll see that highlighted in the screen below. In fact, if we click on the task in the task list, it highlights in the Gantt chart area. And we can click on either of those to open the task form and manage its data. In the data form at the bottom, we get to see whatever information is selected currently. And so actually there's a whole range of columns here to portray all the data that we collect for a particular task and calculate from that task as well. But we only choose to show certain ones of them, and that's all managed within what we call a view, and we'll come on to talking about that in a bit more detail later on. But what we can see here at the top is our plan in a fairly traditional sort of way. So we've got some tasks starting after other tasks, we've got some milestones, we've got some lags in some of these, we've got some of these grouped into summaries, and the summaries are displayed in a fairly conventional way with an overarching summary bar and nesting of the tasks that sit within the particular summaries. And we can nest those summaries down quite a number of levels. So as we come down to some of these tasks here, for example, we can see in the WBS code in the outline that these are down at level 3, so 3 levels of nesting down. And we can see, if we want to, progress bars against these tasks. So it looks like our general task background is red, and we've got some progress bars showing in blue on it. And we can also decide to colour some of our tasks a different colour if we want to give them some sort of highlight. So I've got some orange ones and some green ones here, and that colouring persists through into the rest of the data set as well. We can see that in the table below and also in the table entries to the left. So it makes these sort of things easy to pick up and see, and hopefully reasonably easy to follow what's going on. So let's go off and click on one of these tasks and have a bit of a look at it. So let's pick this task here. And so we can see the task form opened up, and I say here we can do everything we need to for this task. The essential things are all on this general first page here. So we've got the task name, we can put in a description if we want to, and if we want to tag the task with some information we want to search on it or filter on it for later, we can put that in the tag area. We can see this task is a normal task as opposed to a summary task, and because it's a normal task, we determine its percentage complete and its duration, arrangements and resources, etc. If it was a summary task, those would all be calculated from the tasks within it, so driven by the tasks within it. And this task is located within a summary, so it's putting things into appropriate summaries that allows us to develop the sort of nesting arrangement here. So down below at the bottom we have the information about how we're driving the start and end dates of the tasks. Here we've got a single predecessor task. It's starting with no delay straight after the completion of task 11, prepare detailed plan, and it's going to run for 40 hours. We can put times in here in hours, days, weeks, months, etc. To complete the data set. So we've got single predecessor. Actually, we could have multiple predecessors, so it was driven by the completion of 3 or 4 different tasks. Or we can run a sort of fixed duration task where it starts on a day and runs for a period. Or we can run fixed dates where it starts on a date and ends on a date, and it will then calculate the duration of the task in between based on the calendar arrangement that we have in place for this particular plan. So that's reasonably straightforward to do, and that's essential. That's the sort of essential information we need for this task. As we progress through the form here, we can add other things, so we can keep a detailed commentary if we want to on what's going on. We can manage some information about resources, who's working on this task, how much time we expect them to spend, and actually we can also collect cost information, so we can assign cost per hour for people, and that will calculate us an expected cost for this task. So we've got a resource cost here calculated based on the number of hours and the cost per hour of the various people. And then finally over here we've got predecessors. So where we're using multiple predecessors, this is where we can complete that bit of data. So that's a typical task, and when we open a task we can update it. So here we've got a task which has got a percentage complete on it. Now this one's obviously slightly different in that it's got a particular colour selected for it, so it's not using the default colour, it's using a colour we've selected. So we can click on there and give it a particular colour if we want to, or we can just return it to the default should we prefer to do that. But to change some of this content, we can just simply drag its percentage complete through to 100, and we'll see that now come back and update here. And we'd also see that the progress bar has updated as well, because the progress is driven, the summary bar is driven by the contents of the tasks within it. So if we click on that instead, we can see we don't get any ability to set percentage complete or duration information within this within the summary, because it's driven by the content within it. So updating our tasks, pretty straightforward. Adding new tasks, also pretty straightforward to do. From up here in the ribbon, we've got add item. Of course, we can also do the same sort of thing by right clicking into an area of the task and using add as well. And we've got our task form come up. So I can give this Malk's new task. I'm going to make it a normal task. I'm going to put it inside the summary planning. That's the area I clicked in, so that's where it's going to go, but I can afterwards move it around if I want to. Just so we can see it, I'm going to give it a colour, make it stand out a little bit, and we're going to drive it as a predecessor, so it starts after the completion of this group earlier, Source Moving Company. And let's make it run for 50 days. So that's the basics, but of course I can come through here and add some resources. I can either pick people that are already in the resource list here, or I can choose to add somebody else, like that, and I've given them a percentage complete. If I just press apply, it'll automatically put them in for 100% of the time, and either create and add another, because often when we're adding tasks we want to keep adding more and more of them, or I can just create this one and close. So there we've got our new task. We can see here it's showing up in blue. It's actually had a big marked effect on our summary bar because it's pushed it all the way out there, and we can see it's probably also pushed out the overall project completion bar as well. We can see it all shown up in blue, and that's all pretty obvious. In fact, we can move that task around if we want to, using the up and down arrows here, so we can move it up through the plan to put it in a place that's appropriate. And in fact, if we want to move it up outside of its summary group, in fact that's what I just did then, I took it out of one and put it into the other, and it will have automatically moved it into that summary group when I do that. Let's have it back in this one instead. So pretty straightforward to do that sort of thing. Actually, the sort of thing we can also do is we can copy tasks, and in fact we can copy tasks and whole summaries as well. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to copy this prepare new office by right clicking on it, copy. So this is a summary group with some tasks involved in it, and I'm going to come down here in process and press paste, and what we get is a copy of that. It'll have exactly the same task information as we had in our previous summary, and that makes it really easy to establish some standard sort of activities and move them around in the plan, create multiple repeat sets of those, and obviously if you do that when they're empty, you can then add your own comments and percentage completes, etc. as they go forward. And it recognises that links that have happened to these from external to that summary should be copied over again, and links that are internal to the summary are applied internal to the new summary. So it's reasonably intelligent about how it moves those around, and obviously we can copy those things and we can move them up and down and all the rest of that stuff as well. So really quite easy to create a plan, to move it around. Of course we can also load a plan in from another application if we want to, like Microsoft Project, and we'll have a little look at that a bit later on. So there's my tasks in my plan I've been working busily on, and I might now want to start doing some sort of analysis on this, and to help us do that, and in fact to take Planner quite a long way beyond being just the way of assembling and producing a nice drawing for our plan, we have this really quite useful concept of a view. And in fact we're using views all the time. This is a view. We're currently in the default view, which gives us a standard colouring arrangement for our Gantt chart and a typical Gantt chart type presentation of the data at the bottom here. And that's why it looks natural, because it's been set up in the way we might expect. But actually I can change the view anytime I want to, and so here in Select a View we have a whole range of different views pre-packaged. Actually we can also choose to save local views that we define ourselves with the plan, but let's just have a look straight away here at an interesting view. So I'm interested in overdue tasks, so I can click on overdue tasks, and the view goes away and finds for me just the overdue tasks. So the set of instructions associated with the view has said something about the timescale, so it's narrowed the timescale to just focus on the tasks we're interested in. It's filtered the full set of tasks, and we can see that we had something like 33 tasks in the plan, and that's filtered us down to 6. It's actually got rid of all the summaries as well. Now we would have had quite a lot of summaries that were incomplete, but if we sort out the completion of tasks, then the summaries will sort themselves out. So this filter set is ignoring summaries, and it's just focused on any task that should have been complete by now but isn't. And it's given me data associated with that as well. So the data view here has changed. It's focusing in straight on the resources and start and end dates and percentage completes. Actually it's got a whole load of other information as well over here to the right about the costs associated with the task, and that's really quite different to the default view we were on earlier. And in fact if we want to go back to the default view we can see that. There we go, straight back to the default view. Now whenever you're in a view, you can still edit the tasks that you have open to you. And in fact, as soon as you do start editing them, they will disappear from the view if you edit them in such a way that they aren't relevant anymore. So if we make this task complete, it's then taken out of the view because it's now complete. It's not an incomplete task anymore, an overdue task anymore. So these views can be really useful in terms of getting concepts across and getting people to manage data in the way that you want them to within the planning tool where they're not particularly experienced with planning, because you can just say, as long as you teach them about the views, these are going to give them loads of useful ways of looking at things that they might be interested in. So we can go and look at tasks which are external, all tasks that are happening today, all activities that are happening today. So the overdue ones is obviously a particularly useful one. A 1 month ahead look to go and see what things are happening in the month ahead of now. So it's got week behind us just so we can get some context, and then 4 weeks ahead. So we can immediately see all the things that are happening. Now this isn't running a filter, actually the filter is off, but it's just a set of options which have focused the timescales down and changed the display of tasks at the bottom. And in fact we can take that to quite an extreme. So if I go off and have a look at this one here, costs. So this view again doesn't run a filter, but it's really markedly changed the data structure. So it's given me really something that looks more spreadsheet-like, focusing in on the costs for the particular tasks. And in fact one of the things we've got here is a project level summary. We've got one task which rolls up everything across the entire project. So we can see therefore the cumulative fixed cost, cumulative resource cost, therefore the cumulative total cost for the project is this. And so we saw earlier how we can manage the resource cost by putting in resources, saying what the charge per hour is, and it'll calculate that for us. We can also store fixed costs where tasks perhaps are subcontracted or we're buying something. There's a fixed cost associated with them, and that can then roll up again through the various summaries to the top level, giving us a total cost. Now actually what we then do is we calculate what we call the progress cost. And the progress cost is based on the percentage complete of the various tasks. So if a task is 100% complete, the expected progress cost should be 100% complete, and that will be the case as we come down these. As we start to get to tasks which are not yet 100% complete, the progress cost is much less than that, because it's based on whatever the percentage complete. So here we've probably got something like 40% complete on this task, so it's about 40% complete in terms of the cost. And so it's rolling up that to show us it. And in fact what it can then do side by side with that is show us the actual cumulative cost, so we can see whether we're perhaps ahead or behind budget in comparison to our percentage complete on the various tasks. So that's quite a neat little thing, and in fact that's part of the data entry we have on the task. So if we come down to one of these that's part complete so far down here, come to the resources area, we saw earlier how it's calculated the resource cost that we would be expecting to incur based on the charge per hour and the number of hours. We can put a fixed cost in, as I said, and we can actually put the actual cost in as well. So as we start to incur costs on this task, we can put that in and update it like that, and that will then feed through into the costs that we store and roll up at the various levels in the calculations. So really easy to start collecting that sort of information and analysing it in useful ways. So these views, say, you can work your way through, but you can also save your own, and you do that by using the edit view here. And this allows you to switch on and off pretty much everything in the display. The display of predecessors and which item we're going to sort by, if we're going to sort any of this data, and what filter rules are we applying, and which display columns do we want to have, and what date ranges do we want to use, and all those sorts of things. And when we've got all that set up as we want to, we can save that as a new view. So I'm going to call this one the Malc costs. And so now we've saved that, we'll find that this is showing in the plan views. It might be pretty much exactly the same, but it might be a slightly different interpretation or filter set or display columns, etc. And that's now stored with the plan when I save the plan, and any other person that uses this plan will see that available to them, and they'll be able to get exactly the same view that I had. Now these views are not only very useful in terms of getting to the data you want, but actually you can then take that data and use it further. So one of the things we can do here is we can right click on an area of the application, and here I can copy the Gantt chart as an image like that, and I can then go and put it into something. So I'm going to go and put it into let's put a new sheet in here, and into here I can just paste my Gantt chart image. Really straightforward to do, and it'll be exactly what we were looking at in the in Planner at that time. So if we were running overdue tasks, it would just give us overdue tasks. If we choose to play around with the display a bit, so if I move my ribbon here onto expand collapse tasks, I'm in this particular summary at the moment, and I can do this, collapse all others. So I can focus just down onto the ones that I'm interested in. It shows me the context of that by collapsing the others around it. But now if I right click and copy that, paste that into my spreadsheet here, obviously I get what I was just looking at. So we get our simpler Gantt chart. And so the view and exactly the same thing works with running views. We can get that focus we're interested in. So I don't just have to get an image of the Gantt chart though, I can also get an image of the task list as it currently is, or very interestingly I can get this as a CSV. So using our view to set up the analysis we want in our data table, and we can then come to here, paste it, and I've got my cost data straight out to a spreadsheet, so I can then do any other calculations I want on it. And we'll see here we've got it rolled up, so it's following exactly the same thing we did with our Gantt chart. It's automatically tying the two together. The rolled up summaries are shown with square brackets by default. So that's really useful for getting the data out and making it usable. And in fact we can do that at all points through Planner here. So even just on the plan side, we've got a tool which allows us to do most of what we do with fully professional, very expensive planning tools, but actually something much more, because the views enables us to be much better at sharing this information with other people. So that's all I wanted to say at the moment about the planning side. Let's go off and have a bit of a look at risks and issues as well. So here in my risks area I've got something that's pretty analogous to what we had in the task side actually, and we try deliberately to make it like that, to make it easy for people to use. It uses exactly the same ribbons where they're not appropriate, so obviously expanding and collapsing isn't particularly appropriate in the risk register. It greys all that out, but the views information's all very appropriate, as is the home area for adding items and editing items, and here we've got charts that are active, and the charts weren't active when we were in the plan side. So what we've got here is a bit like this sort of Gantt chart. At the top we've got a pictorial representation of our risks, in this case in a table format. We've then got a list of the risks that are active on this project, so we can see them all here. And then we've got a list of the responses at the bottom, and again the view can control which of these bits we switch on and off and how much data we see in them, and obviously the columns that we're seeing and how we order all those as well. So very simple to see. I can just click on a risk I'm interested in, and it opens again in a risk form. Very similar sort of idea, and again the general tab covers the absolutely essential information we need for defining and managing a risk. The other tabs much more likely to be used here than they were perhaps on the task side, but we'll go through those as well in a second. So the approach to risk here follows management of risk and Prince 2 terminology, but you can change some of the aspects of this. So it uses cause, event and effect for describing a risk. So we've got what's the cause of the risk, what event might trigger it, and what's the effect of that. In practice, lots of people find that a bit much when they're perhaps early to risk management, and therefore you don't have to fill in event and effect. You can just use cause essentially as your title for your risk. The system will give it a unique ID. You can also choose to give it a code should you want to, and then you can select the category your risk belongs to. Standard set of categories always provided. This can be extended and personalised for your risk registers if you want to, and if it hasn't been locked down to prevent you doing that. And the status, again, standard statuses, again these can be extended if you want to and it hasn't been locked down to prevent it. So we simply select those we're interested in, assign an owner, and when you're using a shared resource list across or shared plans, risks and issues in one form, it shares the resource list. So we can see we added Mark to one of the tasks. He's now available as a prompt for putting against risks as well. And then we've got the date that we registered the risk. So that's the essential information we need, but in practice what we want to do is record information about how significant the risk is and how much it might cost us and the impact and all that sort of thing. And we do that in two places. Firstly, the inherent risk. When we create a new risk, we can set all that up. Impact, probability, proximity, multiplied together gives us our inherent risk. And initially that'll be tied to the residual risk. And over a period of time, as we start to manage that risk, put some responses in place, that might come down. So in fact we'll go away and create a new one and see exactly how that works. So again, I'm using add item in the risk context, and I've got my new risk 1 here. I can decide what category it is, and we're going to make this a legislation risk, and we've got our status for it. We'll make it open initially. I'm going to give it an owner, and we'll put it against the new guy Mark, and then I can then determine how significant this risk is based on impact, probability, proximity. So we assign a value to these by sliding them down the scale. We can see the term that's being used and the value associated with it, and in fact we can identify opportunities as well by having negative impacts. But here I'm going to make it a fairly significant risk. I'll make the probability of it happening reasonably high, and I'm going to give it some proximity. Now you don't have to use proximity in these calculations. You can reset this so that it always uses 1, so it's taken out of the calculation element, which a lot of people do, but it's in this particular example. So we've identified how significant the risk is, and we can say what the risk might cost us should it occur. So we can put some data in for that as well. And you'll see the residual risk is automatically tied to be the same thing. So in a very simple case, we don't have to worry about setting all that twice. We can just manage our risk like that. We've created our risk pretty straightforwardly. It'll now appear in the risk register, and it's this one down here. So it's included in the table at the top. It'll be included in all our charts and analysis. And in fact, we click on the charts here, we can see various risks. We can see our risk rating spreads. This is the one we've just added, item 10, and it's currently the same all the way through the profiles because we haven't really started to manage that down at all. But its figures will be included here in our risk budgets. We put the likely cost of it in, and that's probably all flowing through to the overall likely risk budget. Now over a period of time, hopefully we're going to start to manage this risk. We could do that in a very simple way by just keeping a commentary about what we're doing about it, and as we start to do some more substantial things, we might decide that actually the risk that's now impacting us or potentially impacting us is coming down. So we can unhook the residual risk from the inherent risk, and we can then start to reflect that. We might say, well, the probability is dropping, therefore the overall risk is coming down. We might say actually things that we're doing are lowering the impact as well. So we've now essentially halved the significance of that risk. It might have changed the value should the risk occur, but that might have in fact gone up. That's possible that we've done that. Of course, rather than just keeping a commentary, we might instead choose to actually manage some formal responses. So we can collect and store those and manage those again with the type of response, who's owning it, who's responsible for delivering it, its status, when it's allocated, when it's due, commentary associated with that. We can store as many of these as we want to. And this really gets us away from the spreadsheet approach, where we can really only store, one risk, one row per risk, one response per row. It's a bit simplistic, whereas here we can have a much more sophisticated model if we want to. And getting away from the spreadsheet, we're into a much more assured collection, structured data here. So we've been updating our risk there, and that will of course reflect it through into all the various places here. One of the particular things here is risks and responses. So as we click on a particular risk in the table, if it has some responses, they will highlight down here in the responses area. If I click on a particular response I'm interested in, like this one that's looking like it's overdue, I can find which risk it comes from. So again, very similar to the tasks, you can jump around between both of these areas, in fact, and select and update that data. And actually views work here as well. So if I want to come to my views, again, I can come in and find, for example, my top 5 high value risks. So there they are. These are the top 5 risks by residual value, and in fact the one we've just added comes straight into that top 5, which makes it an interesting one. And again, very much like in the task area, we can start to select and manage these things. So if I come into here and say, well, actually I've now made that a really low value, then it drops out of that list and another one comes in at the bottom. So again, this is letting us focus people on the things we really want them to focus on. We might have hundreds and hundreds of risks, and that can swamp our view from the big important ones, the ones that have got a big potential value should they come to fruition. And so we can focus people in on those by having views that allow us to target that. And when we look at editing views here, we can see our filters are doing exactly that. We're excluding closed risks, we're not bothered about those anymore. We're looking residual expected value is greater than 0, and then we're ordering to give ourselves the top 5. And we've got these filter rules that allow us to set all that up. And of course we've also stored as part of our view again the display options about which bits we want switching on and off, and how we want to display responses. So really very useful, these views, in conjunction with the data obviously that you're collecting. Pretty much exactly the same sort of thing for issues. Let's have a look at one of our issues. So the form is a little bit simpler, a little bit less in terms of analysis here, because we're selecting priority and severity rather than risk ratings based on cumulative calculations, etc. But we have the same sort of idea of storing different information. So here we have the request for change, off-spec, problem. Of course you can extend this list, so we've got snag added here as an extended item, but the standard 3 are the standard prints issue types, and obviously statuses, etc. associated with that, and responses and all the rest of it. So loads of data there for you to collect and manage. And the planner file is pretty straightforward itself to manage as well. If we come back to home, we can see we've got some updates in place here. The asterisk here indicates that the file has some updates. I can save that and that goes away. So I've now got my file nicely saved back over my original one. Just a couple of things about the management of this. managing resources here and managing lookups. So managing resources, this is where I could choose to store in my template file a whole list of standard people in the organisation and their cost per hour rates, etc. We can store initials information for showing on Gantt charts and the like here, and we can also in this area manage the lookups, and here is where we can change all those things for the risk and issue area. So if I want to reflect some slightly different sort of calculations in my risk form, I can change the entries here that appear in the list, change the order of them, change the value that's going to be put into the calculation when we select that particular entry. So we've got complete flexibility about how we set all this up, and in fact for these statuses we can also assign the colours as well, so we can change the colour schemes that are used in the charts as well. So very straightforward to control all that, and one of the key things here is that you can choose how you let people work with Planner. So say if you just give them the plan like this, they can make whatever changes they want to and send it back to you. But you can actually give them Planner in a slightly more locked down mode. So here in preferences, if I set a password for Planner, it would allow them to still work with plans, risks and issues. They could still add new risks and issues and tasks, they could still edit and change the data, but they wouldn't be able to change the views, and they wouldn't be able to change all the risk and issue setup formats. So risk and issue logs formats essentially will be fixed, and they'll be able to enter the data but not change the views, and that means that you can, as the manager of the project, provide some pre-locked, preset things, confident that people are not going to be away changing all that away from the thing that you want to share around and show. So Planner really can be quite sophisticated in that regard. Also has language files and all that sort of stuff as well. But what I really wanted to do now was show you how you can take that and use it in our main applications. So Planner we provide for free with all of our applications actually. So even if you go and take our free Community Edition, when you opened up Community Edition and open an existing project, so if we come to our 5-step project management example and come down into Start and go and look at the project plan, we're going to have some finances and we're going to have a plan file, but also we've got a plan schedule. We simply click on that to view it, of course, and it will open in Planner as a plan file. And in this case it's just a plan file. It's got a dummy task in. We could of course check this out and start working on it straight away. Of course the risk register one here, which I can see actually is already checked out, is also a Planner file, and this will be running in the single mode again, so it's just a risk register. So there's Planner running in the two different modes already and hooked straight into the application. So Community Edition comes with it automatically, just works straight off like that. Click the file, it'll open and run. If we go into our multi-user platforms, so this is essentially Small Team or Enterprise Edition. And here we've got some projects that use Microsoft Projects, some that use Excel, some that use Planner files, and as I say, it's possible to merge all that data together into our central planning database. So our project has a file for its plan and for its risks and issues, and in this case we can come and see that file. So I get a pretty similar idea to the last one. Here it is. And it's been through an awful lot of version changes in this particular example. Okay, so this example is running plans, risks and issues, and we can see we've got some slightly different things. We've got some different statuses in here, and here's my plan Gantt chart. Now rather than everybody having to come and open planner file to see the data, when we last checked that plan in, the content was automatically loaded into the main application. And that means as a project manager I can simply click on plan here and it will show me what it loaded in last time. So this is all the data that came from that plan, and I can see task information, who's working on it, percentage complete, when it's supposed to start and finish, etc. All nice and easy. And as a project manager here I can see the entire plan, but as a team member I might just be interested in my tasks from the plan. So here I can go and look at the project and just my tasks, just the ones where I'm an allocated resource. So I don't get to see the whole plan, I get to see just the things that are relevant to me. Now of course you could have done that with a filter in Planner, but here it's one of the standard things it does, show you the things that are relevant to you. So that's the things relevant to me from this plan, but of course I can go and see everything that's relevant to me from the whole server, because every plan from every project has been loaded in and shared centrally. So here I get my little bits from every single project plan that I'm working on. So it's a task list for me. I can filter and sort and order this and go away and find particular tasks and click on them and see all the data about them. And just to demonstrate how this is merged together, if I change the attribute here from project name to plan name, we can see straight away we've got some of this data coming from Microsoft Project, and we can see I used obviously the same test file in a couple of different circumstances, and some of it coming from Planner. And in fact I wouldn't be at all surprised if come back up to the top here, some of these old plans, the data has come in from Excel. Now as far as we're concerned, we send the data out into the application in the same format, so when we read it in here it really doesn't matter where it's come from, it's all treated like for like. And that's really useful for the team member. It doesn't matter to them, where the data's come from. They just want to see what the tasks are, so they can see that very easily. Now you can take that data and do lots of other things with it. You can produce resource profiles, again at the project level, but also at the portfolio level, so it can group it together across multiple projects if we want to do that. And we can also send notifications and reminders to people based on the task. We've got the task in our database. We know when it's supposed to start, we know when it's supposed to finish, we know lots of data about it, we know who's working on it, we've got email addresses for those people, so we can send them an email telling them about their tasks. So let me just go off and open my Outlook and we'll have a look at one of those. So these send automatically every night, so these are my notifications from Monday. And we've got some rules set up, something like tasks finished within a certain number of days, but isn't yet shown as 100% complete, and so it's identifying to me tasks that are not complete. It tells me which project they come from, what the task is, when it should have finished, what the percentage complete is, etc. And if I want to find some more, I can click on the link and it'll take me to the application and show me the task details. Now sending these things to the people working on the tasks, telling them about new tasks starting, tasks that should be finished, and reminding them of meetings or invoicing or audits, all those sort of things based on the rules that you set up, really powerful. And that's about taking, we can do that because we're collecting the data in a nice structured format, and it's the sort of data that everybody can access because it's a tool that everybody can work with. Okay, so that was as I say, just promised a quick little view on how you can leverage some of that data a bit better, and let's just finish off with the last slide or two. So we've just seen a little bit of that, how that works in the main application. So just a quick run through the product range. Community Edition we just had a little look at a minute ago. Over 100,000 users, providing standard methodology as we saw earlier, a range of different method templates, completely free. You can use it as long as you want to, and it comes with Planner. Personal Edition is a £99 tool for single project manager. It allows you to customize the methods and also to do reporting. And over 1,500 users of that now, very popular tool for standalone project managers, and comes with Planner to collect your plans, risks and issues for reporting. We then have our multi-user platforms. That's what we were just looking at a moment ago. Small Team and Enterprise Edition. Different beast. It's server based. You can access your information via a browser or a software client interface. Multi-user, permissions controlled, full audit trails, detailed reporting, notifications, resource profiles, all that sort of stuff. Either available for 20 users for £1,000 in Small Team Edition, or for bigger implementations from £4,000. And both of them come with Planner. So Planner is used all the way across the piece for, really, as I say, when we came in, allowing people to collect essential plan, risk and issue information all the time. Often you ask people, or we say to people, we do project management software, and they say, like Microsoft Project. We say, well, yes, Microsoft Project is very important, planning tools are very important, but actually it's going beyond that into all these other things that happen here: methodology, documents, reporting, communications management, audit and assurance. Those things really are what makes a project. Planning, very important, we've just been talking about it, but taking that into risks and issues and all those other areas is even more so. So Planner works really well with the tools, but it's not the be all and end all. You can use other tools if you want to, and we'd encourage you to use the right tool for the right sort of project. So people that use Project in a Box, very wide range of customers, about 50% international now. Lots of local government and public sector organisations in general, but also lots of private sector, because you can put whatever methodology into the tools that you want to, and a lot of even very big companies are using Planner now instead of the tools they used to use before for managing plans, because they like to have the flexibility of the views, and they like to be able to collect risk and issue information at the same time. Okay, so hopefully you found that presentation useful. It was certainly popular when we delivered it at the show recently, and now you've got it, so you can come back and look at it a few more times should you want to. Actually, Planner has something like 3.5 hours in fact I think, of detailed training available, broken down into sort of 15 videos. So if you want to go and see the detail rather than the sort of quick fly through there, that's available on the web page, or from the help button on your Planner tool itself. But if you have any other questions, please don't hesitate to contact us, and we'll be as helpful as we can be. Thank you very much.